Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in this world. This is Hejin Lee with a morning update for Bitcoin. Today, I want to introduce a little bit of a different concept that I do use on a regular basis, just that I haven't put it out as much. I use it more on the equity side, on the stocks, but it's based on the cycles. I've already introduced a few months ago the phasic and non-phasic concept of how cycles can overlap temporarily. And I often gave the example of looking at two cars in front of you both taking a left turn and they each have their left directionals on blinking. And when you look at the two cars at the same time, initially their blinks might be asynchronous, but after a little while they become synchronous, overlap, in other words, phasic, and then non-phasic, they become asynchronous again. From a bigger picture perspective, I believe that we could probably be seeing what's often called an M. Yes, I am drawing this out freehand, a cycle like this. Two full ranges. And in this cycle, you get an M shape. Within this peak, you get two smaller ones. So these smaller ones are sub-cycles of the larger one. That is probably the easiest way to conceptualize this. Now, it can go the other way. And that other way could look just inverted to this. So these are the peaks, and these are the troughs in a trough cycle or peak cycle. And you can look at either one for guidance. So here, you will get the subwaves. Okay? So the cycles have peaks, troughs, and within the peak and trough are smaller cycles that are embedded within it and very active. So what does this have to do with Bitcoin? What I'm trying to say is that for Bitcoin, the bottoming process could be an M shape. And this is not what I would call a double bottom. No, this is from a cycle perspective. Others would, but this is an M bottom, a W bottom, a W. You see a correction down. We saw it to 5,900. Peaks temporarily, midterm, comes back down one more time, and I think that'll be somewhere in this week or next week or so, one more bottom, or this could be the bottom, and it should start rising from here. So this W bottom, we could have, like I said, have already had it, and once it goes maybe 78.78 Fibonacci level of this decline, whatever this rise, whichever exactly it wants to go to, it almost doesn't matter. all of this here is just price flicking around like a fish out of the water. But it behaves within the confines of patterns and cycles, and even Elliott waves are cycles in a fractal, all governed by a immense undertone influence of Fibonacci. So I think this W nature is only saying I'm about to rise. Now, there is another variation to this W. Notice how it's lower here and higher there. That second variation would be that this comes slightly lower, like so. It's still a W, but we get a lower low. And you might be thinking, oh, great, thanks for nothing. Well, the white is my primary, and I've consistently stated in my analysis that with your primary, you should also have an alternate. Notice how this bottom goes to the support region right here. My primary is the white because it is at the point of the long-term support where that line is. Oops. That's where the white troughs have been bouncing off of. So I'm drawing this freehand, but believe me, this is not kindergarten scribbles. I have my eye and understanding as to where exactly these points are. That's how I draw it the best I can in a freehand. There are other mechanical ways of doing it, but they don't give me enough definition of incremental changes. And you might be thinking, well, why did you put the bottom here? Well, this is the longer term support. So this is what I would propose. Primary, which will probably bring us to the 14, 15K. And what does the cycle do? It peaks and then it troughs. So let's say it goes to here. Now these are governed by, you can say 20 weeks and 40-week cycles. So what happens here is it'll trough. That is why I have been saying somewhere around the July time we're going to have another correction. But it won't be a new lower low correction. And what will the blue line do? The blue line will do the same thing. It's just in a different shift. It's like a parallel universe, but in a different shift. Remember what Einstein said. The present, past, future all happen at the same time. All possibilities happen all at once. Therefore, the conceptualization of parallel events would be applicable in cycles as well. That is why technical analysis is not based on certainty, because there's no such thing as certainty in a world governed by nothing but constant change at all instants of time, even in a picosecond, a billionth of a second. One thing does not remain constant to the next picosecond. There is always a certain degree of change. So certainty principle is non-existent. Everything has to be based on probability. So you might say, oh, that's a bummer. We'll go to new or lower low. Let's say this happens and bounces off this support. If you are now aware of this cycle projection, and you are also now aware of the white and then the blue on the W correction modality on the cycle, number one, you won't be panicking if you actually did see this. You'll probably have cash to take advantage of a phenomenal buying opportunity at this support. Because from here, the cycle will be in parallel to what had been projected in the white primary as it is anyways. Because the cycle cannot be disrupted. You can stretch the cycle, you can you can squeeze the cycle, but you cannot eliminate the cycle. The cycle continues. There's a lot more to cycles that can be studied. And I primarily use the Hurst cycles to do my assessments. And that took a bit of studying. And it'll probably take a bit of studying for you as well. It might even hurt your brain a little bit. But once you grasp conceptually and understand it and be able to then apply it, it can become a very powerful tool as well. All right, and you might be asking, yeah, okay, what's happening right now? What's your regular analysis? Okay, that'll come in a couple hours. But I wanted to introduce this and give a little more confidence on a bigger picture perspective. I provide the shorter term perspective only because the short term allows and enables a better geopositioning from Elliott wave and pattern perspective, a better geopositioning on the bigger perspective, on the bigger picture. The reason is because everything is fractal. Everything is fractal, and the fractal nature, while not 100% correlatory, it is helpful. And if you know how to use it and apply it, it can become quite effective. I also am trying to provide demand, because remember, my blog is a demand pulled blog. There's a good segment of my followers and readers who would like short-term assessments. I provide and supply and meet the demand. There's another group, a segment, who would like to have only the long term. I provide now both, have been since the beginning of my blogs. As I often say, I hope you found this to be helpful. I hope you found this analysis to be able to augment your due diligence. And I hope I've earned the right to ask you for your upvotes. Earn the right to maybe compel you to add some Steam power to your Steemit accounts. And you just have to Google that on how to exactly do that. There are many tutorials on how to add Steam power to your accounts. To give more of an emphasis to your upvotes. That would be really much appreciated because the trolls are out. They're going to the 6-7 day ones, zeroing it out as much as they can. All right, have a great day, and I'll have the more detailed short-term analysis of Bitcoin in about an hour or so.